Hey, it's good to be back with you again. I promised you that I would try to spend some time with you talking about how you can write and then ultimately share your personal testimony. Let me share it with you that we want to do this in about 300 words or less. And I know what you might be thinking, 300 words? Man, I'm just getting started. But the purpose of your personal testimony is just to give them a brief understanding of what it means for you to have a relationship with Christ and then how they can too. To do that, we have to be careful that we do it in such a way that we don't overwhelm them. So, hence 300 words. Now, as you get to sharing with a person, sometimes you will broaden it by throwing in illustrations and things like that. But I just want to teach you the basics, and then you can use it in whatever way God leads you to use it. I believe that the personal testimony is the most effective tool that we have in sharing our faith and what it means to have a relationship with Christ. And in these times, it also is the most effective tool we've got to just simply say, hey, look, I recognize we're in difficult times. There's some scary things going on out there, but I'm at peace. And here's why I'm at peace. And so I want to share with you today what you can do. And basically it boils down to 3 specific statements that you find a way to weave into your conversation with the person. And the first one is simply, what was your life like before you accepted Christ? And then you tell them what your life was like. And I mean, it doesn't have to be horrible. I know sometimes people feel like they're a failure if they don't have this remarkable testimony about having been on this, on that, and I was at the edge of death and all that kind of stuff. And certainly there are legitimate people who have those kinds of testimonies. But for most of us, it's just going to simply be a simple, before I received Christ into my life, this is what my life was like. I was afraid. For me personally, as a teenager, I was invincible in those days, but there were certain things I still was afraid of, particularly death was one of them. And so learning what it meant to have a relationship with Christ and what would happen to me if I did die, that took a big burden off my mind. So the first question that you're going to respond to or answer in your testimony is what your life was like before you received Christ. Then the second thing you're going to look at is simply, how did you receive Christ? It could have been in the quietness of your home. It could have been watching a TV preacher. It could have been your mom, your dad. It could be anybody as far as that goes. But it's important for them to see or to know that you did something happened in your life. And now understand this also. It doesn't have to be this grandiose moment where the heavens open up and the choir starts to sing and all that kind of stuff. It can just be a quiet moment. For some of us, sometimes it's not even a moment. You just sort of grow into it. And all I mean by that is you all of a sudden say, hey, I have a relationship with Christ. And that's good. That's okay too. And then the third thing that you want to try to do as you write your testimony is how your life has been changed since you received Christ. In other words, what the Word of God says is that when we invite Christ into our life, He begins a new work within us. A work that will not be completed until either He comes to claim us or we go to be with Him. And obviously we don't know how long that's going to be. What we do know is then it's not necessarily an event, it's more of a journey. It's more of a walking with Him, and as we walk with Christ, He continues to do things in our life that make us more like Him, if we allow ourselves to be open to that. And so it changes your life in a lot of ways. I shared with you a few moments ago that for me, having received Christ, all of a sudden, and beginning to understand what it meant to have that relationship, I didn't have a fear of death anymore because I knew what was going to happen to me somewhere down the road when that time comes. So those are the things that I would encourage you to do. Just simply take a piece of paper and start writing down. What was life like for you before you came to Christ? How did you receive Christ? And then the third point is, how was your life changed since you received Christ? Now, if you're having trouble doing this, that's okay. Sometimes it is a little difficult. One of the things I would encourage you to do is read Adam Hamilton's book, The Walk, what we've been studying, because it looks at the basic Christian principles that we're called to follow, the practices. And if we begin to follow those, I guarantee you will start to see these kinds of things in your life. Now, last thing I would share with you is I would be very open and enjoy reading some of your testimonies. If you would like to send one of them to me, I would welcome the chance to read it and share with you my thoughts on it. Not criticisms, but ways that you might make it better, ways that you might make it more appealing. One of the things I know about your personal testimony is as you share it, the hope is that people will see in us something that they want. We will make them thirsty, and they will know that the answer is to find the drink, and it will be Christ. Hopefully we use the right kind of bait to catch the fish, if you will, where they come to see that what we have is something they want. The last thing I would say to you also is that sometimes we're in a culture that demands an immediate response. We have microwave ovens, we have drive-through this, we have drive-through that. We want everything to happen instantaneous, and it can, and Christ certainly works in that way. But I think of one particular instance where I shared Christ with a person and shared my personal testimony, and then he just looked at me and he says, I don't want any of that stuff. And in fact, he said to me, don't want you praying for me. Well, I said, okay, I won't. I lied. I didn't pray for him. What I would do is every 6 months or more frequently than that, I would just send him a note saying, I'm thinking about you. Why do I share this story with you? I happened to be preaching on a Sunday morning, and in the church I was in, we gave an invitation at that time. And when the invitation time came, I looked, and here he came down the aisle. And he wanted to give his life to Jesus Christ. He recognized the importance of doing that. And you say, well, that's great. It worked. Your testimony worked. And I said, well, yeah, it did work. What I need to let you know is that was 7 years later. So when you share your faith with someone, don't quit sharing. Be the faith that you've been called to share. Show people what it means to have that relationship. And if the opportunity affords, you tell them. What you need to remember is you're not in charge of that, what happens beyond that. We just simply do what God has called us to do, and then let God work. Now, again, I think I forgot to tell you, if you do want to send your testimony to me, my email address, rmcassady, and Cassady is Cassady 40@gmail.com. I would love to read it, share my thoughts on it, and then help you become better equipped to share your faith, both in how you live your life and in how you tell others about it. Amen.